Hello and welcome to today's broadcast from Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and I'm going to be taking you through making embellishments. If you have any questions at any point, we do have the live chat being manned by Ian. So either Ian will be able to answer your questions in writing or he'll put them to me and I'll say them over the air. Okay, so when you've been cutting out your Scan and Cut Cricut or any other project where you've got big pieces, you're going to end up with lots of offcuts and you're going to wonder what to do with them. Well, this is what I do. With this file I've been cutting out some mini album pages, so I want to make some coordinating embellishments, and already I've started to trim my offcuts ready for this process. So what you're going to do is start to divide your sheet into logical elements that you can then use to create your embellishments with. So strips are always good. Likewise, if you have a particular shape that you want to use, so here we've got the triangle of our banner, so you can form that into a tab, and so on and so forth. And you would work around your whole sheet, and then with your larger areas you can use small die cuts. So I'm just going to take out this piece here. So that we can do some die cutting. Now this is where your small dies come in really handy, and this set is a Spellbinder Sapphire set, and it has lots of different small pieces that we can use to create our embellishments with. So you could be boring and just use some of the plain squares or circles, or you can start to use some of our little flourishes that we have. So as I've already cut lots of basic shapes, I'm just going to take one of the flourish dies off my backing, and then lay it onto our card. And obviously you're going to want to bear in mind when you've got a double-sided piece of card like this, but on which side you want to use. So I think for this one I'm going to go with the hearts. And because we have a solid area here, I'm just going to use that to line up with one of the hearts. Otherwise it can look like you're just using a random piece of paper. And I'm just using some painter's tape just to hold it in place while we die cut. And at the same time we can look at our other dies and maybe bring in some of the other small shapes. So here we've got a little daisy that we can pop down the other end. And then do our sandwich. So in this case I'm using a Spellbinder's Platinum. So I'm just going to pop that onto my cutting plate. Clear one on top. And through your machine. Carefully move your tape, as you may want to get another die cut or an area out of that later. Set your tape to one side, and then very carefully just want to remove your die shape. There's our first one. And if you have one that has lots of small holes that you can use to poke your shape out through, I just use a glue applicator just to loosen it off. Just literally rotating it through the little sections to pop it out. before giving it a gentle push in the middle. If it still won't release, you can start to really push into your little sections. Finally, when that doesn't work, you can go for something a little bit more robust. Obviously you want to go careful that you don't tear. There we go. There's our flower shape. I'll just put those back on our backing sheet for a minute. Now, one of the other ways that you can do this is with your scan and cut. So if you put your offcuts onto your mat and do a background scan, you can then overlay the shapes that you want to use and move them about to fit your offcuts. So on the October USB there's going to be a file that says embellishments, and that's going to feature all of these shapes that I'm now using today. So we have all sorts of cool shapes that you can play with, either to use as a backing for your embellishment or as a decoration. And of course you can always alter the sizes to fit. So I'm going to start with one of the basic shapes that I've die cut, and because the colours that I'm using, I want to actually put some tint onto my piece. So I'm going to use a combination of fossilised amber and spice marmalade. So I'm going to start with my darker colour first. I'm just going to go around my edges. Before then moving to my fossilised amber, just because I need a little bit more of a yellow tint to match my paper. Okay, because we're using distress oxides, at this point we can flick on some water to give our piece some background texture. And you just literally want to, if your pen's not quite wet enough, just give it a little tap. And you don't want to go too mad with this, it's just literally to give it a little speckle. Obviously the harder you shape your pen, the bigger the blobs. I'm just going to blot it off with some kitchen towel. Now you can also do this with a sparkle pen to get a touch of sparkle into your background. So if I hold it up, you should just be able to see very subtly at the moment. And likewise if you want it a little bit more. You can actually start to physically shape just to get a bit more into spaces. Just trying to get that corner. There we go. And then blot again. Now at this point you can start to go in with your fossilised amber, and you can do this many times. So if you want to create like a galaxy effect, by doing the layering like this, you get lovely deep texture. So you can see the difference between the ones that we did before and then inked and the ones that we've just done. And this goes with our splodges in our paper. Now before you go too much further, you're going to want to clean up your glass mat. And I just literally put a few drops of water and use a bit of clean tissue just to dry it all off. Okay, so next I'm going to take one of the shapes I've cut out my backing, because I want to put a little tab. And just decide which way I'm going to go. I think there. So any glue will do for this process, but I'm just using some Cosmic Shimmer. And press it down. Then I've die cut some little letters. Now when you're using die cut words, you can always rearrange your letters or make new words with them. Or if you want to be precise, you can keep your waist and actually place your letters through, give you good alignment. I'm just using the tip of my glue to spread that up my letter. Sorry. So you can see a bit better. So you don't want to use too much glue, else it will splodge out, and then that will actually interact with your distress oxides. So be careful, and certainly if you get any on your fingers, be sure to wipe your fingers before you go to your piece. This is certainly more. Okay, so at some point I might just cut a little heart out that. So next I'm going to go on to my circle piece. I'm going to start with my fossilised amber for this one. So we start to pick out some of the other shades that I have in my album. So I have two shades of a deep yellow, one of which is almost orange in tone, and one which is considerably lighter. Now you can always use fussy cutting if you're offcuts, if you have areas where you can clearly cut out designs. So for instance, we have our paper here with our numbers, and you could either do this by hand or using your scan and cut. Just for speed, I'm just going to do this by hand. Okay, then behind that you're going to want to pop a shape of some variety. So we could start to look at some of our offcut shapes to see if there's something there that would do. And they don't have to be perfect because we can hide little imperfections at our letter. So I'm just going to start by sticking those two together. So a little bit glue. Every time. Okay, so rather than it all be just bold colours, I want to put in a piece of pattern that can go with it. So using one of our little bits of offcut, I've roughly cut it into a rectangle, and I'm just going to pop that to one side, like so. So just going to apply glue over one half of our base shape, also a little bit onto our number. Okay. So then when we bring our shape back in, and then go right, I want some glue across this entire middle section and a little bit just there. So I'm just going to line that up. And then you can either trim that piece round if you wanted to, but in this case I'm just going to leave it as is. Now one of the other things to play with is different textures. So you can use glitter card offcuts and all sorts of other things to actually bring into your work. So I'm just going to tidy up my inking. And I'm going to bring in one of our stripy blocks. So this would be a larger embellishment. And some of the other pieces that I've done, I can start to bring in. So if you do a large die cut shape, you can end up with some interesting bits that pop out the centre, and we can start to bring those into our embellishments. So I quite like those like that, so I'm just going to pop a little bit alongside. press it down. You can use the grid on your mat to help. I find that if you're doing a lot of alignment with your mat, you're better off using a self-healing cutting mat rather than a glass mat, just to get that alignment slightly more accurate. So we can line up our next piece. And then you may find that there are bits of patterns that you want to use, but I don't think that's going to work for that one. Let's try that. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them into the chat box. While I'm doing that, I'm going to ask him very nicely if he'll cut me out a circle using our non-shed glitter card that we have in stock. It is now. So even though we're missing a bit of our number here, and this is why I wanted to pick this one, you can actually use it as part of a design element. So let's say for instance you wanted to do it there so that you can see that then the pieces wouldn't interact. If it was round the other way, so to speak, so if your piece had that kind of thing going on, you could hook it over that way. And then I'm going to bring in one of our contrasting strips just to tie it in. So we could use the yellow, or go back to our grey, or even just bring in a strip of plain white. But because the white in our one set of offcuts to our other is slightly different, you're actually better to stick to your colours, otherwise it can look a bit odd. So I'm just going to apply my glue. To my end of my strip. And I want it to go across to there. And I'm not pressing right up against this card, otherwise you get a crease in your card. So you want to go very careful where you're overlapping two sections. Now, just to make this fit a bit better, I'm going to take a little bit out of here so it can fit round the stripe a bit better, because our offcut wasn't quite square on that bit. Okay, and check it again. And then if to get that to fit, you find it drops down a bit there, just take a little bit off. Like so. Check it again, and now you're going to want to know where you want to place your glue. So we're going to go across our bottom bit here and do our tip of our 2 at the top. Thank you. So across the bottom and there, like so. So I bring this back in. And you can either leave that attached if it fits with your page out that you're doing, or you can just snip it off. And in this case, I'm just going to snip it off. Now I'm just going to bring in my glitter circle, which I was thinking of popping behind, but I think I'm going to go for something slightly different, as you do. I just want to cut the centre out of my O. Okay. Start off by doing a rough cut. So because our number works both ways round, we don't have to worry about having a white border. And I'm going to pop behind the centre strip between between two pages, so we have a little oval in the middle, which we can then position over to one side or to the middle. The choice is yours. But to stick it down, I'm just going to start by concentrating on gluing our oval section. And again, you don't need too much glue. And I do love this glitter card because, like I said, it's non-shed and it's perfect for using with the electronic cutters. And then I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue at the stream ends of the strip. And you only need the tiniest amount. And I'm going to take it around the back. I'm just going to snip it off. Add a bit more glue. And again, take it around the back. And snip it off. You want to try and be as accurate as possible with your cut, so you don't want it to overlap, otherwise your embellishment won't sit nicely when you do come to stick it on. Poor bottle slowly running out of glue. There we go.
Further up, sweet.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can stick our glue onto our number. Let's handle it clean. Okay. Now you can either go through the middle like I've done, or you could offset your number so you can see a bit more of your shape. And then I want to add a little strip onto that, I think. So I'm just going to do a little go. And don't forget, at this point you can start to use all your leftover word stickers, letter stickers, but you can also use type phrases as well, which is what I would usually do. Because this is going over several different layers, I wanted to put a little bit more glue on. Going to trim this one off. Now on to some of our basic shapes. Now I've done these on double-sided cards so that you can flick between the two, use them together. The choice is yours. But I want to bring in a bit more of this yellow because I know that when it goes into the album, this is going to be our strongest colour. So I'm just going to form a background with it. Time to refill my glue. Remember, the more glue you apply, the more wiggle time you have. So I'm just going to chop this off roughly, and then we can go back in and tidy it up. little rectangle front eye. It's a low. Now I've already cut out some of my letters. Here we go, all or nothing when it gets down to the end. And that's just a few of the ways that we can use our offcuts to actually create embellishments ready for our larger projects. To see what I do with these embellishments, be sure to follow the channel, our Facebook page, and also this project will be featured in full in our magazine. Look forward to seeing you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!